Good evening and welcome back to another live episode of Red Tinted Glasses here on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel. And thank you for your patience if you have been tuned in live waiting. Some may say that I was doing a Calum and waiting patiently for 1903 to go live and not having technical difficulties when I couldn't hear Calum. But again, some people might say not hearing Calum is a bit of a blessing. Anyway, Calum, on that pleasant note, how are you doing?
Thanks, Glenn. I feel really good at the start of the show now after that. So actually, no, I'm well. I'm excited for the start of the season. Every time I'm like, oh, it's been a long season. Kind of glad that's over with. And then after 2 weeks, I'm chomping at the bit to get going again. And I'm so glad it's finally coming round. And we're going to preview it. And we've got a signing, potentially two at some point to talk about. So I'm, delighted.
I know some may say that was another reason for the delay. Coming up on the show, we will be previewing first up the opening weekend's fixture with Talk Livi host Euan Rankine. We'll then be getting into Calum's favourite part of the show as well, when we discuss all things transfer talk as well. And then we'll be capping off any other business, which for some of you might include an exciting opportunity to join me on the podcast, since Calum decided not to plan his holidays with the footballing calendar. So I'll be missing a co-host for some key games. So I'll be paging the likes of Phil Mayer, Johnny Main and Beth Wallace. But if anyone else fancies a go in the co-host seat, then sure to drop us a message. But Calum, you said you're excited to get back to footballing action. I'm excited as well. And I'm also excited to get Euan on the show as well. Euan's been on plenty of times before. He's had a busy week. He's been talking to the Livingston manager. He's been on Open Goal as well. And I'm sure for those of you that have watched the Open Goal Fans Forum, he won't be taking up as much time in terms of talking as much as Erin did from an Aberdeen perspective. Erin, I know you can take that one as a good joke. But yeah, let's get Euan onto the show, Calum. Euan, welcome along to Red Tinted Glasses and joining us live as well. So not your first rodeo in doing live podcasting.
Yeah, I know. As you said there, I've had a busy week with the old podcast, and I was podcasting till about 11 p.m. on Monday night there. So it's just being a Livingston fan and somebody that does podcasting, we're a rare breed. So I tend to be in fairly popular demand at this time of the season for previews and things like that. So yeah, it's been very busy. But thank you again, boys, for having me on. It's a pleasure as always.
I'm glad with your busy schedule you can fit us in. I suppose, Euan, we'll start with your thoughts on how Livingston's pre-season's gone. I spoke to you yesterday as part of the Talk Livi preview, and you spoke about Livingston's defence and how that is an area that you've looked to shore up over the course of the close season. So going into the start of the season, how are you feeling from a Livi point of view? Because again, something we talked about yesterday is that many pundits, and I'm sure some fans alike, will have you probably written off already at the start of the season.
Yeah, I think we tend to get written off most seasons, in fairness, and folk have us kind of in that bracket of struggling, and we've kind of always defied the odd season on season. But I think just the manner in which last season ended, it was our worst goals conceded. I think it was 60 conceded in the league last year, which is our most since promotion. And it was our lowest goals scored as well. I think it was a minus 24 goal difference over the course of the campaign. So there's kind of, the best way I can put it from last season is 8th place was a good season. In my eyes, anything 10th place and above is a good season for Livingston, but there was worrying trends kind of settling in the latter part from kind of February onwards. We also went on a run of 8 away games without a goal, 8 defeats on the bounce, which I think is a new top flight record, which is not something that you want to have. But no. So Davey had made a point, I was chatting to him, as you said, on Monday there, and I think his kind of ethos over the pre-season period is try to get us back to being that difficult to beat Livingston. The likes you would normally have pundits saying, "Oh, they're always difficult to break down. They're well organised," and I think he's really wanting to get back to that. He's kind of switched our back three in pre-season, and it's a 3-4-2-1 with kind of 2 inverted 10s playing in behind the number 9, and so far so good. Albeit you need to take into account we've been playing lower league opposition, albeit a couple of the bounce games we played Carlisle and played Rangers as well at their training ground through in Auchenhoe, and we only conceded 2 goals in the 9 games. So there's a progression there, and albeit still some teething problems, you could probably say, from a couple of the games overall with the system, but we have looked more solid. We've not been giving up as many kind of opportunities as we probably did last year, and there seems a bit more physicality about our back line as well this year compared to, I think Davey made a point of saying Obalai was out injured from, I think, kind of beginning of March last year, and we probably missed Io a lot more than he anticipated we would, and it's been clear to see he's been the anchor in that back three in these games, and he's certainly added that physicality back into the back line.
Yeah, and Calum, I suppose it's interesting. It's kind of maybe going to be a bit of a battle of the back threes this weekend, then, judging by how Livingston have been lining up in pre-season. Is Livingston away a tricky opening start to the season, given, as I kind of said to Euan on their podcast, that all the expectation and pressure is on us going into this weekend? No one's, with the greatest of respect to Livingston, probably expecting them to go and turn us over. So with following up with Celtic at home next weekend, it really puts a lot of pressure on Aberdeen to go out and get points on the board. And I know Euan probably feels the same, because Livingston have quite a tough opening set of fixtures.
I mean, yeah, I think going to Livingston recently has not been easy for Aberdeen. Whether you play that, put that to the credit of their team on the pitch or the pitch itself, that's up for debate. Probably a combination of them both. So there's definitely pressure. I mean,
it's one on the bingo card for me, Calum.
There we go. Maybe David should spend some of that last bits of budget that he's got left on the pitch, mind you. But there you go, tick that one off as well. Added a bit of pressure, I think, the fact it's opening day this season. You always want to start with a good start. Recently, not so much in Barry's time, but over the past few years, we've very much struggled on the road and at all, and let alone especially at Livingston. So it's a tough one, and it did concern me a little bit, Euan saying they've played 9 games, whereas to my knowledge, we have played 5. I'm sure there's maybe a couple other behind closed doors games that we've maybe played, but they'll probably be sharp. They've played competitive football. That is a little bit of a concern to me, but it's vital that we do, despite all of these things not going in our favour, which sounds ridiculous to be saying. We need to start with 3 points, and I don't care how we get it. If Livingston wants to sign Matt Straycheck back up again to throw the ball into his net, then I'm okay with that.
That might be another one for Euan's bingo card as well. Speaking to Johnny Bain, who's a fan of the show, he was along at the cup game against Cove Rangers, and Johnny picked out the fact that Livingston were very organised, but were extremely threatening from set pieces. And I think that's an area that Livingston have, in my mind, always been threatening at, is set pieces. Is that probably an area that you'd be looking to hurt Aberdeen at the weekend, or who would be the kind of key players that you'd mark from a Livingston point of view that could cause Aberdeen problems? I know Stephen Kelly's a player maybe many have in their fantasy team going into this weekend.
Yeah, the kind of set play myth with Livingston FC has become apparent with pundits and things like that the last few years. I think if you go and look at the stats, certainly defensively, and probably from an attacking point of view as well, in terms of goals scored, goals conceded from set plays, we've actually been one of the highest in the league for the last 3 seasons, I think. So again, that was something that myself on Monday was that he's wanting to be stronger in that department. And as you kind of mentioned there, the Cove game, we're opening 2 goals by Tom Parks and Obalai, both centre halves coming up from the back, managed to score from 2 of the set plays. So, and the third one from Bruce Anderson comes from a cross ball as well. So it's probably an element that we've been working on over the course of the season. I've noticed we're playing short corners and trying to create different angles from set plays and things like that as well. So it is something that, again, has clearly been worked on over the course of the summer. But in terms of the major threats, player that I'm really looking forward to watching again for us this season, Stephen Kelly, he racked up the vast majority. I think it was all 4,289 of our Player of the Year awards. Stephen Kelly just about won. And I fancy him to have another very good campaign. That's who we've now taken up player sponsorship after he stole Nicky Devlin from us. And Joe Newbley and Bruce Anderson are kind of the other obvious ones. That kind of front 3 rotates a little bit, I would say. Joel's been the number 9. Bruce has dropped a bit deeper at times in these League Cup games, and then vice versa. Nubly's kind of dropped back into that 10, and Bruce has gone up as the number 9. So there's a bit of rotation in that kind of front three, but Stephen Kelly's the one for us that has the creative spark and can make us tick. And he has a bit of an eye for the spectacular. Again, talking about that Cove game, he's 2 goals in that game. One was a 25-yard cracker into the top corner, and the other was a fantastic volley. And his highlight reel from last year, he doesn't score goals inside the box. He offers a bit of threat from range.
Yeah, and speaking of Nicky Devlin, I'm sorry we couldn't continue the podcast sponsorship theme. We didn't have a spare $3,500 lying about to sponsor a first team player. How do you think it's going to be for Nicky Devlin going back to Livingston on Saturday? I'm sure he'll be getting a decent reception.
Oh, he absolutely deserves a good reception. I was talking about this last season, and a section of our support were giving Nicky quite a hard time second half of last season because maybe his performances had dipped, and natural as a football fan, a player's out of contract and you just think they've down tools, but that's definitely not the type of guy that Nicky is. Having got to know him, fairly well through the kind of sponsorship stuff we've done for him the last 3 years, but in my eyes, he's up there with the kind of Dave Mackay's, David McNamee's in terms of the best right backs that we've had at the club in our history. He's been that good for the football club in the last 4 years that he's been there, almost 150 appearances, 2 years as captain, a League Cup final, top 6 finish, and multiple kind of Player of the Year awards. So he deserves as good a reception as any kind of former Livingston player. In my opinion, he's been simply superb when he was at Livingston, and thought enough, I actually messaged him when the fixture got announced and just said that was inevitable, but helped the Lions get off to a flyer on opening day. We won in the back of his own net when they go amiss to get the Lions up and running for the season.
Yeah, I know you've dropped Nicky Devlin a message. Calum, I think we should be dropping a message to our new Instagram follower after Duke followed us both on Instagram on Friday night to both our surprise. So I'm sure we'll be dropping him a message to ask him to put the ball in the back of the net. Calum, on Aberdeen going into this game, Barry Robson spoke in his pre-match press conference today about taking the game to Livingston, trying to attack from the off and use the speed of the game, probably something we saw in that opening 45 minutes of our last preseason game over Charlton, in which the Dons won 3-2. Is that important for us, is to really kind of not let Livingston almost settle into the game, and again, with the greatest of respect in terms of maybe using a footballing cliche, let Livingston kind of park the bus and us having to try and work out how best to break them down?
I think over recent times, especially, obviously things might be very different going into the new season under Barry Robson when he's been able to shape the squad a little bit more to his liking. But when we have had the attempt to break teams down and they have really, really sat in, we have massively struggled. Now, I don't think Livingston are necessarily going to do that because they absolutely have players, as you both mentioned earlier, that can hurt us. I mean, Joel Newbley is capable of anything on his day. Whether his day will come, I don't know. But and Bruce Anderson obviously gets a chance, especially against Aberdeen. He'll take it and absolutely fucking love it, unfortunately. But I don't know. I think it is important that we do start off and control and set the tone of the match, because although Livingston difficult to break down, as I mentioned, they're capable on their day, and if we turn up in big numbers in the stands, how often recently has that gone badly? Where you think, oh, we've got basically a home game here, we've got the majority of the crowd here, and the pressure's been too much. So it's important that they do control things and keep us on side and not get frustrated.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it also, like listening to Barry speaking about the team news going into this weekend, Rhys Williams set to miss out, Angus MacDonald's touch and go due to his freak injury that he said was down to a fall. Going back to the bingo card of the plastic pitch, Calum, do you risk Angus MacDonald this weekend if he is touch and go? Obviously, we've got Slobodan Rubezic in line to make his debut. Jack Milne, Nicky Devlin can all play across the defence as well. Do you risk Angus MacDonald this weekend if he is touch and go, or leave him and have him fully fit for Celtic next weekend?
If he's touch and go, I wouldn't risk him. He didn't feature in any of the pre-season friendlies, which and then I think to bring him back after a freak injury, which as you say was a fall, which makes him sound unbelievably old, would be a risk on that pitch. And I guess physical side with Livingston as well. I personally wouldn't risk it. If he was on the bench, I'd be happy. There if called upon, if required, and also suggests he would be then ready to go against Celtic.
Yeah, no, and I'll let you defend that comment, Euan, about the physical approach that Livingston may adopt in the game. Is that something you think Livingston will go with on Saturday? What sort of approach do you think Davy will have the team in terms of facing Aberdeen?
Well, certainly Shamal George is back available because he served his suspension at the tail end of last season, so he should be starting between the sticks. The back three in the last couple of League Cup games is probably what I think he'll go with, which has been Mikey Devlin, Io Oberlai and Tom Parks as a kind of back three who are all very big and physical and can put themselves about. So that's probably what I would suggest the back three is going to be. The only one that might change out of that is Tom Parks for Morgan Boys. In terms of the midfield two that might sit in front of them, Jason Holt's probably a shoe-in to be there. And again, the last couple of games, it's been Andrew Shinnie that's been playing in with him, but we signed a boy from Accrington Stanley in the summer called Mo Sangari, who's seen as a bit of a direct replacement for Stefano Mionga. But if you put them side by side, you wouldn't say they should be a direct replacement for each other because Mo Sangari's kind of in that 6 foot bracket compared to Omiyonga, who is about 5'7". So it's probably a toss up who will play in that area of the park. Possibly Sean Kelly as well might play in there with Jason Holt. Again, adds a little bit of height. Good dead ball delivery as well from Sean Kelly as well. And either side of that, it's been James Penrice has been on the left-hand side and he's played Christian Montano on the right-hand side, which personally I'm not a fan of. I don't think you get the best out of Christian, in particular when he was playing at left-back last year, coming from deep. He was arguably one of our best players last season. And then, as I say, that front three I mentioned earlier on, it'll depend who he starts there. Scott Pittman's obviously a regular in the side and can play in that role kind of as a 10. And maybe because we'll expect not to have as much of the ball, he might put Scott Pittman in there because of how good a job he does off the ball when we're out with possession in terms of the ground that he covers. So there's probably a couple of areas where Davy's got a slight headache, which, as I say, would probably be in the kind of two centre midfielders in there and who he plays in his front three. But that's probably the biggest headaches I would say we'd have.
Interesting to hear. I was just making notes of those players because I had Penrice in my team, but I wasn't sure if he's cheaper or more expensive than some of your other defenders from the fantasy league. So that's where the notes were being taken for. Calum, I suppose for us, the biggest kind of selection headache is Barry Robson mentioned after the Charlton game is who we start with up top. Duka Miovski, obviously the ones we know and have come to know what to expect from. But Ester Sokler impressing in pre-season. Do you think it will just be the tried and tested Duka Miovski up top this weekend?
I think so. Providing Miovski's fit enough to start, which given the fact he's featured, he's scored obviously against Charlton, you would expect he's ready to go. I think those two deserve the start from the off, and then it's sort of their position in the team to lose to Ester Sokler, who's obviously going to be champing at the bit to get in there and has been amongst the goals in pre-season. But I think it's got to be the tried and tested Duka Miovski. And then now we've actually got that bonus of not taking on Marley Watkins if we're looking for a goal, but Ester Sokler. And I suppose Alfie Babbage too.
Yeah, Sean Neville's going to be furious at your slander to Marley Watkins. But yeah, no, I think I'm excited to have that pace and touch that Ester Sokler provides and a bit of quality coming off the bench as well. But I guess, Calum, as well, the biggest talking point going into this game, and we'll kind of come on to it a little bit later on in the show, will be who starts in the centre of midfield alongside Graham Shinnie and Leighton Clarkson, with, of course, the transfer talk surrounding Yilwa Ramadani. I guess we'll quote Johnny Hayes and say we could launch our secret weapon in Dante Polvara this weekend. I suppose a bit of an unknown quantity maybe for Livingston fans, but a player that's impressed in the pre-season games so far.
Our secret weapon, the US sub, Dante Polvara. Huh? All right, guys. Yeah, I want to start Dante Polvara. Ramadani, the speculation, the liking of the tweets on social media, his head's not in the right spot. I'd like to start Dante Polvara. He looks good. He's obviously featured a lot previously, very recently for Charleston Battery, and has impressed in pre-season. I know he certainly impressed us up at Turriff. He's got a marvellous mullet, and he's 6'4". Get him in the middle of the park to deal with Mo Sangari. That'll sort them out. And he deserves a chance, I reckon, at this stage, especially since he wants to be here. Arguably, Ramadani does not.
No, he doesn't. And I'm looking forward to Slobodan Rubezic potentially starting as well, coming out with an aggressive playing style, as he says. And John Beaton is the man in the middle for this weekend's game. So for those that like a wee bet, I'm sure he's maybe a stick on for a yellow card this weekend. But, even hearing Euan speaking about short corners gives me PTSD at some of our attempts at short corners. You speaking about how we bottle it in front of large away crowds. It all gives me excitement, goosebumps. The season's just about upon us, and the fun will begin, and the moaning will undoubtedly follow quite quickly if things go horribly wrong on Saturday. But fingers crossed from our point of view anyway, Calum. Things go according to plan, and we're coming up the road with 3 points, or you're going back across to Stirling or wherever you're being based this weekend with the 3 points. But Euan, thank you very much for your appearance here live on Red Tinted Glasses tonight, and giving us the Livingston insight into the weekend's game. What are you going to predict for the weekend? Because you made me predict on your podcast, so I'm going to make you predict on our podcast.
I can't come on and predict a defeat, can I? So I'll go for a one each, a hard fought one each draw. I'll go for absolute fence sitter, but I don't care.
No, well, that's fair enough. For context, I predicted a 2-1 win on the Talk Livi podcast as well, and it's there in recording, so people can go back and prove that as well. And I'll do that on here as well. Calum?
As we say, I was going to predict 2-1 as well, but I'll stick my neck out and say 3-1 instead, just to be a little bit different. Livingston are a good side. They're probably more match sharp than us, but I think our quality will hopefully see us through. But thank you very much for joining us, Euan. I will forgive you for your mention of David McNamee and the PTSD that caused.
He's a League Cup winner, David McNamee. Love the guy to bits.
Thank you very much, Euan. And just for anybody, because there might be some Livingston fans tuning in to hear our point of view on the live episode, where can people catch Talk Livi for after they finished with this episode tonight?
Yeah, so can catch us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can see a handle there at Talk Livi. And if you want to tune into our latest episode, which was released yesterday, which is our first one of the season, so that's on all the usual sites, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube as well. So feel free to tune in. Perfect. Euan, enjoy the rest of your evening. Don't enjoy Saturday too much, and all the best for the season ahead. Cheers, lads. Enjoy. That was Euan Rankine from the Talk Livi podcast joining us to preview the game this weekend. Calum, excitement definitely there ahead of the weekend. Probably buoyed by what we saw at the weekend in the 3-2 win over Charlton in that opening 45 minutes, especially when we were very free-flowing in attacking football, because going in at halftime 3-0 up against a League One side, that is when the excitement really got going for a lot of people. Oh, I was so close to saying we're winning the league. So close at that moment. Very, very comfortable in the opening 45. Encouraging, free-flowing attacking football. Graham Shinney getting involved in the goals as well. Very encouraging. And oh boy, did I love seeing that chap attempt to take on Duke and just bounce straight off him. Yeah. I know, you can tell he's been working out with Jay at Bannatyne, so good to see that Jay's been helping him build his muscles up there, and some good minutes and good assists for Dante Polvara and Shaden Morris as well. So I'm sure both their confidence has been buoyed. Shaden certainly a player that I've been critical of in the final third, and probably as well a player that's been played out of position so far in pre-season. Just wonder how much minutes will the real stuff starting now that Ordadi is in the door as well. Yeah, it'll be an interesting one. Obviously, he has started off at right wing back quite a lot for us. Obviously, partly due to the fact we've required Nicky Devlin to play centre back. But it will be interesting to see how it all pans out in terms of our back 3/5.
because of the addition to Slobodan, who looks like he's ready to go straight in. It certainly looks eager, and I would be excited if he was in from the start. But then you've got the problem of the left side of defence. Who else plays alongside Slobodan? If Nicky Devlin needs to play at the centre back, is it Morris? Is it Dadia that plays right wing back? It'll be interesting. I'm not sure who I would prefer. I think I'd rather see Dadia, if I'm honest, just to see what he's about, really, because I still know little about him. But if Shady Mo's going to get his chance, I'd prefer it wasn't at wing back.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. Interesting kind of selection headaches that Barry Robson faces this weekend, and interesting guest at the game at the weekend as well, with Lewis Capaldi taking in the game. I think that was a crossover that many didn't expect to see, coming out at full time with his photos with Connor Barron and Graham Shinney alike. So I wonder if he'll be taking in more games across the season, maybe bringing us a bit of a luck as well.
You never know. You never know. He also got a photo with Johnny, in which they both looked absolutely delighted in. But good, it's good to see him enjoying himself, I suppose, as well, given the well documented issues he's been having, and taking in some luscious football from the Reds, and witnessing the Duke show.
Absolutely. Right, Calum, without further ado, we'll get on to the main event of your evening, and the main event that's been filling up the comments for those interacting with us here live on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel. So continue to provide your thoughts on the upcoming topics, because it's certainly been heating up on the transfer front, Calum. Barry Robson coming out today and saying he knows what he wants. He won't put a number on the player he wants, but they have been holding talks with people down south, was what he said. Well, he said down the road, and I was wondering if that meant Liam Scales or how far down the road he was going. But I kind of feel the ships maybe sailed on Liam Scales, and I'm getting a bit fed up of it dragging out. More on that situation a little bit later. But let's start with the kind of hot topic of Yilbur Ramadani, Calum. We spoke about him briefly a little bit ago, about whether or not his future lies. There's a comment coming from BSTRL that suggests that Ramadani's potentially gone with a 1.1 million fee with a 10% sell. Now, if I remember correctly, I'm sure that was the fee that was initially rejected by the club, and Barry Robson coming out and actually saying in the press conference that there was a bid accepted, but rejected, and he was still going to be part of the squad for the weekend. But I think, as you alluded to when we were speaking about the Livingston game in general, I don't feel his head will be in the right space for the game this weekend.
No, neither do I. I'm trying to find out where all this nonsense is coming from, because we've not been on Twitter, so I've just had a quick look, can't find anything quickly. So let us know in the comments down below where this information is coming from, please. Don't start him. The liking of posts on social media, etc., a little bit disrespectful, but I still love him, so it's tough. I don't know. How would you feel about him going for a decent fee? He's not one of the younger players in the squad. He's come in for a cheap fee. We've managed to finish third with him. He's banged his chest a few times. We've all lapped it up, and then we've got a decent fee that can then be reinvested. How would you feel about that? But no start Povana at the weekend, regardless.
No, it's interesting. I was having this debate with Chris at work today, and he's nearing his 30s. I think he's 27, 28, and he's a player that we probably can't get much of a sell-on fee with. So, if we're getting 10%, then that's a great deal. And I think I saw Kaiser in the comments as well saying that Budapest have got a sell-on fee of whatever we get from him leaving the club. I think the fact that he has openly liked all these tweets again and not decides to unlike them on this occasion. He's followed a few of the Italian journalists. He's followed Lecce on Instagram or Twitter as well. He's almost like he's pining for that move and, not interested. A few people were commenting on his actions after the game against Charlton as well, the way he acted with throwing his top and his training top into the crowd and waving goodbye. Some people maybe took that as him just, thanking the fans that travel down. Some took it as a goodbye. It feels weird as well, Calum. I think, we've only had him one season. People also saying that he's replaceable. Some people arguing he's not. I think he was a player that a lot of us, and we've said it on the podcast, a player that maybe got what it meant to play for Aberdeen. But ultimately, money talks. I also made the point as well, listening back to a Red TV interview that he did before the League Cup semi-final about how his dad's never been able to come over and see him play for Aberdeen. I don't think his brother managed either, due to visa issues. So I do wonder if there's a bit of homesickness in there, and the ability that he's not been able to see his family. So moving back closer to family, and the option to play in Serie A as well is obviously what's attractive to him. But it also fits the model that we've been doing as a club, bringing in players, developing them, and then selling them on for a profit. What annoys me most about this deal, though, is how close to the start of the season it's happening. I know that's kind of unavoidable in terms of transfers, but it now puts that bit of extra pressure on the likes of Dante Polvara and Connor Barron to fill that gap of an experienced player that Yilmaz Ramadani brought. He's an Albanian internationalist as well, and I'm sure he'd have provided plenty of experience on the European stage, albeit maybe not having any experience in terms of playing European competition. But as I said, it's just that bit of experience that we're going to lack, and now puts us pressure on probably getting in a replacement, because heaven forbid some Dante or Connor pick up an injury, we're suddenly, light in the middle of the pitch.
I certainly think he will be replaced. I will come on to the rumour that you sent me just after this about who he was going to be replaced by. Do you not remember it? Well, it'll be a surprise to everyone then. Look, he maybe could have gone about things in a little bit of a better way, but we've avoided the whole hand in a transfer request nonsense. And he gets to move way closer to his family, probably, make a good chunk of more money playing in Serie A, and then maybe wherever he goes from there. We've qualified for Europe with him, and we make a decent profit on him as well. So it sort of works out for everyone in the end, and Bojan has clearly moved on as well and made new friends, so that's good for him. At least he's over it. So I'm a bit sad to see him go, especially after only a season. I didn't expect it to happen, but good luck to him. And if we replace him as well, I think he would need replaced, then I would be delighted.
And I think BCRL points out that Ramadani played the most minutes for us last season as well. So it's not like he's a player that was down the pecking order. He was a key part of the team last season in finishing third. So definitely does need replaced as well. And, I do know a few people obviously jokingly drawing comparisons to the fact that we've taken in a Serbian and an Albanian's going straight out the door almost instantly. But I'm sure there's nothing to be read into that. It's just a bit of lighthearted humour on that sense that you see on social media. Interesting, though. I know you want to pick up on the replacement, so I'll let you go and get into that then.
Okay, thank you. It was you that sent me it. I can't believe you don't remember it. No. Or maybe you just didn't want to say his name. It was Yanni Atanasov. Now, this could be total nonsense.
This was a Clivo rumour that I got on WhatsApp, so I'm assured it's probably going to be a load of nonsense, so I'll let you go with it.
But you never know. This is what rumours are about. You've got to cling on to everything and, see where it goes. It's just a little bit of fun. Yanni Atanasov is in line to be Ramadani's replacement once his move to Italy is confirmed. Robson seemed to confirm this to Alan, the groundsman at Cormac Park today, that Aberdeen met his release clause of €500,000 and the Cracovia player will fly in for talks over the next few days. Fellow Macedonian and international teammate Bojan Miovski is believed to be highly influential in making this deal happen. Look, whoever made this up, or Clivo, they had a lot of fun with making it. But look, I've searched him up. Looks a big lad. Mates with he is a real person, by the way. Mates with Bojan potentially. Get him in the door. Get him another ball in. I don't care if it's shite or not.
The nonsense he's now going to send me that you've read out in full is going to be unbearable.
That's fine.
But I suppose we mentioned him on the last show. The lad Phillips from Crystal Palace has obviously been linked. I just wonder if there's anybody kind of more domestically that we could look at. And I actually mentioned it to Euan yesterday when I was speaking to him. Stephen Kelly, I know he's maybe more of a number 10, but it impresses as well. And a player I liked domestically in terms of maybe a replacement for Yilba Ramadani would be Benny Beningame from Hearts. I know I've spent last season out injured for a long period of time, but I always thought he was a very tidy player on the ball and did a lot of the dirty work during his first kind of spell in the team, probably been 2 seasons ago now.
Yeah, he's a very good player. However, I see he was out for all of last season. I think it might have been, and also Hearts would want an arm and a leg for him, I would imagine. However, also still looking domestically, I posed the question about Keanu Bacchus on our Twitter, to which there was a lot of mentions of Mark O'Hara. And I would be interested to see which of those two you would potentially prefer. And I'll read. I'll do that. I'll find the results of the poll.
Yeah, you do that. Okay. See, this is great teamwork for a live event. I'm definitely more in the Mark O'Hara camp. I think, a goal scorer as well, continues the theme of lanky bastards in the team that we've gone in terms of signing as well. But I think a few people also pointed out the fact that Mark O'Hara recently signed a new contract at St Mirren, or is certainly on a longer contract than Keanu Bacchus, who would cost us more money. If you're looking at Keanu himself, I think Bolton Wanderers had a bid of £200,000 accepted for him. And for whatever reason, the player decided against going down south to Bolton. If that is all the money that it's going to take to get him away from St Mirren, then I'm sure we can quite easily afford £200,000 for Keanu. A player that, for those that have tuned into a lot of our episodes, will remember that when Alan McCarley was on the show previously, he was a player that was mentioned by Alan as a player that starred in the A-League and has obviously now earned his move to Scotland. So I can see the logic to both players, but yeah, my preference would probably be leaning towards more Mark O'Hara.
I think Mark O'Hara would probably cost a little bit more if we're being realistic, but as a player, you probably would prefer him. However, I do think if it was going to be Bacchus, I think we would have to pay a little bit more than what Bolton would have, just because we're in the same league and they won't want to sell one of the better players for pennies. Obviously, an international for Australia. But I said on Twitter, hypothetically, if Ramadani leaves for a rumoured fee of circa €1 million, would you be happy if Aberdeen then used that fee to sign Liam Scales permanently and Keanu Bacchus from St Mirren? Now, Liam Scales, we're probably not going to get him, especially not for pennies, especially since he's doing quite well at Celtic in pre-season, it would seem. Fuck him. Keanu Bacchus, people basically on Keanu Bacchus, people said 83% yes, they'd have him, 17% said no, but maybe that was more about Liam Scales. I would have him if we're looking domestically. However, if we do want to look further afield and bring in some lad we've never heard of, so we can all shit the bed of excitement, then I am all for it.
Yeah. And then going on that then, speaking of unknown players that we've never heard of and we're all going to get excited about, new left back, James McGarry. I think we're maybe more excited than Bob Duffer is in the comment when he says he's underwhelmed already, but that just shows the differing opinions that we're all entitled to when it comes to football. Can't be bothered. Comments as well with McGarry potentially coming in. Does that mean no Liam Scales? Interesting to see if that would mean an end to Liam Scales. What's your thoughts on this new development of a left back, an actual left back potentially being signed?
I just got excited because there was a left back we were being linked with. I still think we would need a left-sided centre-back, Scales or otherwise, if we're going to play the three with McGarry as a wing-back, because having done a bit of research, just a tiny bit, it seems he's definitely not capable of playing left centre-back, so wing back is what James McGarry is. And I'm just excited and hope that this is the one that we are apparently close to when Dave tweeted we're close to 2.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think that this is the player that Dave Cormack was potentially referring to, because as you said as well, Liam Scales does seem to be doing well for Celtic in pre-season so far. And I just think if we are that close, I don't feel it is a Liam Scales signing. And I think if it is Liam Scales is going to end up coming up here, then I do think that will be towards the end of the transfer window if we do see him coming into Aberdeen.
Sam, you donut. He's not a centre back. He's a left back or left wing back. What are you talking about? Or are you speaking about Liam Scales? Maybe I'm the donut. Regardless. Yes, James McGarry. I think it's good that we're addressing the problem. I think he's a good age as well. Obviously, know very, very little about him. However, I will note that we'll be signing him from the same club that Mark Birighitti was at. So let's sorry to dampen some spirits, but yeah, and Ziggy Gordon was there as well. So
was there not somebody else? Did Hearts not sign somebody? Oh no, is it not? Maybe it's Hibs. Is that James Jeggo? Did he come from Central Coast Mariners as well?
Quite possibly. They are just a supply chain for like not like the top two clubs, but just like, and not really anyone else, just like the middle three. However,
they won a trophy last season as well, because that's who Jason Cummings was playing for, so he knows how to win trophies.
Oh, and he knows Jason Cummings. Get him in the door. He's now playing at India, funnily enough. But yeah. Despite the fact I've got a cold in August, you have forced me to do some extra work and research. And that was look at James McGarry on Football Manager. Now, Football Manager, obviously not the pinnacle of accuracy. However, has been used by Sky Sports. And I will back it up by saying that they do put a lot of research into the players. In fact, that Calum Matson, who does the Aberlytics for on Twitter, he is the Aberdeen researcher for it, for Aberdeen players anyway. So I am now going to work out how to present what he looks like, etc. I am prepared slightly, and here is James McGarry and his attributes on screen. Now, you will notice that it's the numbers here out of 20. It suggests that he's very much an attacking fullback, a wing back, good at crossing, good at dribbling. He's 5'10". However, apparently not very good with his right foot, despite the fact we've seen a video of him knocking one in the top corner on Twitter recently. With decent work rate, and physically he's okay, if not a little bit lightweight, at just 10 strength out of 20. So middle of the road there, Glenn. What are your initial thoughts? Have you had a quick chance there?
It was like being back on the Calum Wright YouTube channel all over again. A terrible section for those tuning in on audio, but great for those tuning in on YouTube as well. Interesting stats, and probably again goes into that mold of a player that we can work on, develop, and then potentially sell on for profit as well. I do quite like the look of that option there, where he is a player that we can kind of work on. What does concern me, and it probably goes back to the point that Sam was making about not being able to play across the defence, is if he is very much one-footed, because we've kind of seen that problem with Jack McKenzie being very left-footed and the problems that causes. But it is an area that we need to strengthen on the left-sided defence. We've been crying out for it, so we almost can't get to the point where we're getting too picky. And did you compare them to how he stacks up against Hayden Coulson and Johnny Hayes, was it?
I actually did, and Jack McKenzie as well. So we'll have a little look. So Jack McKenzie will be his probably direct competition, most likely, as well as obviously Johnny Hayes too. So let's have a little look. It would appear to me that Jack McKenzie's probably better defensively. Oh, Jesus. I'm messing this all up. But you'd expect that. Jack McKenzie a bit more of a left back, whereas James McGarry appears to be slightly better going forward. But it does concern me some of his defensive attributes, with a marking of 8, tackling of 9, and positioning of 8, all out of 10. So that is a bit of a concern. But in terms of going forward, he certainly seems to stack up a bit better than Jack McKenzie. So there's that. Do you want to do some filler whilst I prepare Johnny Hayes?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking I can't wait for Duke to be watching this video and discussing it with Jack in the changing room tomorrow, saying, look how you're comparing to this potential new guy. But interesting to see how he compares to Jack McKenzie on the defensive stats. I'll be interesting to see how he compares to Hayden Coulson, because Hayden was a player that I certainly thought held his own. But you've got the stats here for Johnny Hayes. So how does he compare to Johnny, regular concussion sufferer Hayes?
This is a fucking new low, isn't it, Glenn?
Yeah.
So in terms of Johnny Hayes, his mental attributes appalling compared to Johnny Hayes, but Johnny Hayes is a mentality monster, so that's fair enough. He looks slightly better at crossing the ball, which is great news because Johnny can barely cross a rose at times, bless him. Defensively, looks relatively similar, but a better of a passer of the ball, apparently, and physically pretty similar. Which, given James McGarry's coming into this prime of physical age, and Johnny Hayes is ancient, a little bit of a worry.
Yeah, and this content is good enough for Sky Sports News, so it can be good enough for the RTG viewers. And if this helps you in your next career move, Calum, then don't forget me when you're presenting transfer talk on Sky Sports News.
That's my dream job. If I get to do Football Manager shit on Sky and just be, oh, look at these attributes, that would be brilliant. But I've got the Hayden Coulson comparison, which we'll just quickly look at. Hayden Coulson, pretty highly rated on Football Manager for some reason. However, in terms of technical ability, apparently Coulson better, which I'm not surprised. Pretty silky feet, good on him. Well done to him. Mental attributes, pretty similar. However, physically, which I think was a lot of the concern around Coulson, James McGarry seems to come out on top with an average of 11 compared to Hayden Coulson's 10. So there we go. I hope this hasn't dampened too many spirits on the new signing. Euan Grant, no longer excited about McGarry. Football Manager's not gospel, and this was for the start of the 22. No, this was from January, the latest attributes from January's update. So maybe he's got better since. Let's hope. And Barry can improve anyone.
He can. And I noticed West Coast Sheep tweeted us to say that Scott Burns has said that McGarry won't be in before the weekend. And it seemed to be from the press conference, Barry Robson indicated there would be a signing before the weekend. So maybe we've got somebody new to get excited about. But one player that we will be getting excited about is Slobodan Rubezic, or Ruby, as he wants to be known, going by his Red TV interview. And yes, I wondered how long it would be before one of us braked out into Kaiser Chiefs. Excited to see what he can offer, Calum.
Absolutely. This is the combination of my two favourite things in football. Nostalgia. Right, I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. Nostalgia and signings. Two favourite things combined. Slobodan Rubezic, 6'4", watched his interview. Gentle giant. Seems a lovely chap. Fucking loves the grey buildings. Don't listen to anyone when they say Aberdeen is grey. He loves them, and that's good enough for me. Barry seems to love him, going off his presser. Okay, so exciting new signing. Kaiser Chiefs always used to get played at Pittodrie when I first started going, and it's just brought back Ruby into my life. Combine them both, recipe for success.
Well, we're on to a winner then. And he fits the mantra that Barry Robson's looking for in terms of players. He said he wants to have three things in when he's signing players at Aberdeen. They have to be winners, they have to be aggressive, but they also have to be good characters for the dressing room, because we currently have a good dressing room, so we don't want to disrupt that. And judging by what Ruby had to say, he said that he likes to play aggressively, so expect a few cards as well, like we said, probably this weekend. But he also, as you said, seems to be a gentle giant. He likes walking around Aberdeen and admiring those historical buildings. He loves Aberdeen. He loves the stadium. It reminds him of one of those historic old stadiums, as he called Pittodrie as well. He buys into that nostalgia, to just go with the feeling that you've had as well. And he also feels that Scotland's the perfect country to develop his game as well, and listening to that interview as well. Sounds like we're the right fit for him. I'm just excited to see what he can produce on the pitch. And the other encouraging thing as well is he's already had a full preseason behind him as well, with his previous club as well. So should be ready to go if called upon at the weekend.
Absolutely, that is the main thing for me. And also, although he's had a pre-season which fitness suggests he will be absolutely fine, the other concern for me would have been how's he going to slot in, because he's moving over here. Perhaps he wouldn't have spoke the best English, not really knowing anyone. However, Bojan seems to have adopted him. In his interview, he spoke incredible English, so communication wouldn't really be a concern for me. So I would fully expect him to go straight in. He's at a very good age, a relatively cheap signing. I suppose when you consider the risk compared to the potential reward. He's 23 years old, 3 years with a potential extension of one more year. I love it. Absolutely love it. And the fact he looks fucking mental, but then he's actually just a really nice guy, it seems. Really, really suits me. And if he's aggressive on the park, even better. A big bastard.
Yeah, and I liked how in that interview as well, he kind of name dropped Nemanja Vidic as a player he looked up to. If he's anything the player Nemanja Vidic was, then wow, that's going to be good as well. And yeah, I do like the little bromance that he seems to have struck up with Bojan as well. Bojan's quickly forgotten about Yilba Ramadani as well, and finding a new partner in crime. And on Yilba Ramadani, Paul Donaldson in the comments saying that Anthony Joseph, the Sky Sports news reporter, has now posted that Aberdeen have accepted a bid from Lecce for Yilba Ramadani. That bid is £1.1 million with a 10% sell-on clause as well. So interesting to see how that develops over the next kind of 48 hours. And certainly those may be tuning into the audio version of this episode that haven't joined us live on the episode. Probably some of this information is maybe slightly outdated as well, but that's the way things go during the transfer window as well. Calum, I suppose with no official numbers on it, do you expect any signings to be made before the game this weekend? Barry Robson said he hoped to have somebody in the door. Obviously, as I said, that tweet from Scott Burns maybe seemed to allude that McGarry's not going to be in this weekend. Would you be happy if there wasn't any signings before the weekend?
At this stage, can't imagine that they would feature if they did come in. I'd like to think Barry probably knows better than Scott Burns, however, so I'm choosing to trust the gaffer on this one. Whether there might be issues, I suppose, with McGarry coming over in terms of visa or whatever. I don't know how things would go from Australia or being from New Zealand, because obviously we've not signed a player from there yet, and I don't tend to pay attention to the rest of the bastards. So it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting, but perhaps given how things have gone with Slobodan, where there was no indication at all about any sort of issues, perhaps we are now nipping things in the bud in terms of leaking it being done before all that's sorted. So maybe that is all out of the way.
Yeah, no, absolutely, of course. The first player that we've maybe signed from down under, but wouldn't be the first Kiwi to play for Aberdeen, of course, Rory Fallon, having that honour. But certainly something to keep on top of and keep additional content for us after the Livingston game, what transfer speculation comes from that. And I'm sure on the next episode of Red Tinted Glasses, we'll have all the fallout from the Yilba Ramadani transfer saga, if it's completed, if it's still dragging on. We'll have our thoughts on that. In terms of other news then, Calum, we've got cup competitions to look forward to. We'll also, on the next show, be reviewing the Europa League playoff draw, because that takes place on Monday, the 7th of August as well. But one draw that has already taken place, Calum, was the League Cup draw, which has saw the Dons paired with Stirling Albion. It's another trip to Forth Bank. But the game has been moved to Friday night to accommodate the Highland Games on the Saturday. So the Dons will be travelling to Stirling on the Friday evening with a 7:45 kickoff. The game will not be televised, however. We have offered our services to Mr. Burrows if the club want to do a stream and they're looking for two terrible but funny commentators. Alan, feel free to give us a shout. What's your thoughts on the draw, Calum?
I'm happy. We obviously don't have good history with drawing the lowest ranked team in the competition recently, but a chance to right those wrongs not on TV, so there's not all that pressure of us, waiting for the slip up. On paper, it's a very, very good draw for us. Best chance of getting through to the next round. But obviously, we beat them under Jim Goodwin, so Barry should have it no problem. In theory, the Pies smashing at fourth bank, and something a little bit different. I'm happy. Friday night football, bit of an inconvenience for people after work. However, again, just spicing it up, keeping it a little bit different. Will we play on every single night of the week or day of the week this season?
Well, it's quite possible because we definitely have a couple of Wednesday fixtures, and I know for home midweek games the club like to play on a Tuesday. So
we'll be over halfway there anyway by the end of August. Thursday, Sunday, Saturday, and Friday.
Yeah, we will be. And as you put it, the Friday might be inconvenient for those potentially travelling from Aberdeen after a full day's work. But it's maybe the first time the SBL are actually giving us a helping hand. It allows us an extra 24 hours to rest ahead of the opening playoff first leg, because that will be the game after the Stirling game. So, as I said in a group chat, maybe that kind of ideal opposition to have in the warm-up for a tough game coming up in the Europa League playoff?
Arguably, providing we go about it the right way. By that, I mean play a strong team, get the job done with half an hour to go, 20 minutes to go, take off your key players, and then we've got plenty of time to rest them, prepare them, and travel as well, I suppose.
Well, if we do have to travel, because obviously the draw's not been made, but we all know what happens when we play lower league teams in the League Cup before a European game, because that Wraith game still sticks in the memory, and I'm sure that's going to be something that Barry won't want to have with. Yes, he will have one mind on that playoff game, but I think you're right. He won't want to disrespect Stirling Albion and disrespect what is one of our better chances of winning silverware at such an early stage.
Barry will not disrespect opposition. I fully believe that he is a man that respects the cup and will play a very good side. And I suppose it was mentioned that we've got less time to prepare for it after the Celtic game, but I would be just a little bit more concerned about the European tie, especially if there's travel. Having the extra day is brilliant.
Yeah. So speaking then of travel, potentially, let's look at the Europa League draw and what we could potentially face. And thanks goes to Paul Donaldson, as always, very informed in the comments on YouTube, whether it's during these lives or afterwards. And he's brought up some of the potential opponents that we can face. Now, Aberdeen are in priority pot 1 for the Europa League playoff draw. So what will happen in terms of the format of the draw is that we will face teams from pot 4. Now, I believe there's only 3 teams currently in pot 4. And then once the 3 teams from pot 4 have been matched off against teams from pot 1, 3 teams from pot 3 will then get matched off from teams from pot 1. So Paul has picked up some of the teams that we can face, and they're on screen now for those that are watching this live on YouTube. So Lugano of Switzerland are fixed in pot 4, and they have a lower coefficient ranking than us, and they're based in Switzerland. One of the other teams guaranteed to be in pot 4 as well are the losers of the Slavia Prague versus Dnipro 1 game in the third qualifying round. So potential, I think it would be quite fitting actually if we ended up playing Dnipro in a playoff for group stage, given that was the last team we beat before going into the group stage. Going back to your nostalgic look, Olympiacos is potential opponents because I believe they've got a third round qualifier to play as well. There should also be Ghent from Belgium as possible opponents for pot 4. Paul also notes Astana or Ludogorets as possible opponents as well. And I noted from the Wikipedia page there was one of the Limassol teams from Cyprus, and also the losers of the BK Haken, of course, former opponents for us in Europe, and Klaksvik, who beat Ferencvaros in the Champions League and currently have Haller Hansen, former Don, in their side. They're in extra time just now in their game 2-2 after the second leg in Sweden. Genk, I think, was one of the teams that can go. They're also set for extra time in that leg just now. So interesting to see who we could get, and we'll find out that on Monday. But any excitement building for European football for you yet, Calum, or not so much, given you're going to be on holiday for the playoff?
No, not at all. Because of the holiday for the playoff. I booked it when we were shit. I didn't think there was even going to be a chance of this. And it's actually at a terrible time because 5 days once we're back starting uni, need to get a flat sorted. Fucking nightmare. So no excitement, just fear. It would be nice to play Neat Pro and a bit romantic, I suppose. Other than that, no real preference for me because I won't be there.
Yeah, interesting to see as well. HJK Helsinki will potentially be down in there. Breidablik are getting a right doing from Copenhagen so far tonight, likely to drop down into that playoff as well. And previous European opposition that we faced, probably before me and you were born, Zalgiris Vilnius from Lithuania as well. They've just gone 1-0 down to Galatasaray. That's 3-2 on aggregate now to the Turkish outfit. So interesting to see who we face on Monday in that playoff game, obviously with guaranteed European football, regardless of the result. And I'm sure depending who we get, maybe some of you will be deciding whether or not that trip is worthwhile, knowing that we've got 3 European away games to follow later on in the year. So certainly one to have Skyscanner and Booking.com open, I'm sure, for a lot of you on Monday.
Yes, not for me, however, unfortunately, because there's no teams from Budapest potentially we could draw, nor Zagreb. So fuck off.
No, not yet anyway. I'm not sure how much of those permutations can change, but we'll be across that and bring you our reaction to the draw on next week's show. But of course, the focus this weekend is on Premiership action as the Dons head to Livingston to kick off the new season. We'll both be in attendance. We're both looking forward to the real action getting started, and then either reviewing a fine victory or picking the bones out a disastrous start to the campaign before the champions visit Pittodrie for the opening home match of the season for the Dons. But I'm sure it will be a most positive start to the season. If not, you can blame me for being more confident than Calum for a change.
Yeah, well, I was just upset about the possibility that we're going to have to talk about a loss after not doing that for so long. As long as I still get to do my transfer rumours, then I'll be happy.
Oh, well, I'm sure we'll find something to keep you happy. And not sure quite yet if we'll be doing that as a live or if we'll just do that as a pre-recorded episode. We'll see what the week brings and what the weekend brings as well. Go on in.
You also have to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at RTG_podcast to find out.
Yeah, that's very true. And over 800 of you now subscribe to the podcast on Spotify. So thank you very much to those of you that do subscribe on the audio platform as well as you do here over on the YouTube channel. If you have been watching tonight and haven't done so already, please do hit that like button as well down below. Until next time, we will see you next week. Enjoy the start of the season, whether you're going to Livingston or not. I guess it's for the first time this season. Come on, you Reds!